Today's episode is brought to you by Cousin It.
Musical styles are still a very important form of communication for our young people. Hi, I'm Joe Feinstein.
It's quite rare to see a film that focuses on someone who isn't the protagonist. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, The Great Gatsby and The Last Samurai are both prime examples. In those stories, we have a main character in that they're our point of view for the overall narrative being told, but aren't the protagonist, meaning they're not the central thing pushing the narrative forward. Of the small pool of films that fall into this niche, this one definitely has to be one of my favorites. On top of that, it's my favorite collaboration of John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, who've done several projects together, including The Thing and Escape from New York and LA. And on top of that, it's also my favorite soundtrack that Carpenter and Alan Howarth have come up with. For those who don't know, Howarth was responsible for helping to come up with some sound effects for multiple Star Trek films and aiding in the soundtrack work for The Thing, Escape from New York, and Student Body. So all in all, you can understand why this has such a special place in my heart. The rest of the cast is super solid as well. We get Kim Cattrall from Sex and the City, James Hong, who I mostly know from his voice acting work in Kung Fu Panda, who has had a massive film and TV career dating back since the late 50s. And we even have Dennis Dunn from The Last Emperor. We also have to give a big shout out to the stunt coordinator James Liu, who would go on to lend his talents to Inception, Get Smart, Endgame, and the Rush Hour series. Much like many other cult classics, this film initially did pretty poor at the box office. Now, it was made for upwards of $25 million, and at the end of the day, only really made less than half of its budget back, which honestly is surprising, given the fact that only 4 years prior, The Thing released in theaters. And yes, that film barely made its budget back, but A, it was really socially beloved, and B, went to show the talent and potential of both the director and the lead actor. Not to mention there were a couple behind the scenes or behind the production factors going into it. First and foremost is the Alien sequel was going to be coming out only about 2 weeks after the release of this film, and a lot of people were just saving their movie ticket money to go see that instead. Not to mention, 20th Century Fox really didn't do that much in terms of marketing and promotion for the film, so you can see how all those things led to this underwhelming performance overall. So why don't we take the opportunity and dig a little bit deeper and see what's to love about this one. Now, as I mentioned up top, this film at its core is truly an adventure tale told from the perspective of what's essentially the sidekick. Jack Burton comes to town for what we can assume is a routine delivery run, given that he and Wang have known each other for quite a long time and hang out together whenever he comes to the area.
Will you Jack Burton?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Boy, the guy you always told me about, huh?
But on this trip, he happens to be there on the day Wang has to pick up his fiancée, which in turn kicks off the whole series of events. If you really stop and think about it, you realize that Jack is the far less competent of the pair in literally any situation that they find themselves in. At the start of the events, it's Wang who tells Jack what's going on, where to drive to, and who everyone is. Though Jack has a lot of bravado and shoot-from-the-hip mentality, it's Wang who kicks off the whole adventure by declaring he's going out alone to find Mao Yin.
I'm going now, alone if I have to.
Can't just waltz in and out of there
Like the wind. Yes, I can, Miss Law. My mind and my spirits are as one.
Jack saddles up and goes with his friend, but again, it's because of Wang's understanding of what they're dealing with that they even make it as far as they did. Throughout the film, they do clearly show that though part of Jack's reasoning for going in guns blazing is to impress Gracie, but it is mostly due to his own ego and just wanting his property back. Despite how out of depth he's shown to be, he's still an absolute meathead who will throw his head against a brick wall until it shatters.
Do it live!
It's clear with Wang and the circle that Wang has assembled that they are the actual protagonists who actively combat the situation, whereas Jack is simply along for the ride. Now, I do totally understand the initial confusion about who the quote-unquote hero is, because the film literally starts with the Gandalf of the group, Egg Shen, praising Jack for his deeds.
You're protecting Jack
You
Burton.
leave Jack Burton alone. We are in his debt. He showed great courage.
But if we take it into a larger context, A, there's no evidence to suggest that he hasn't already had a similar conversation about Wang and his involvement, and B, and more importantly, it serves as an intro to 1, the transition to our point of view character, and 2, an actual brilliant tease as to the magic that we're about to see throughout the film. Even on your second viewing of this film, it becomes crystal clear that Wang and Egg Shen are the actual protagonists, and Jack is just there for the point of view and to be the ride-or-die best friend, who coincidentally is also in it for the money and to get his truck back.
My truck! Forget it! Where's my truck? I'm out of here. You don't want to go back there. Isn't your truck insured? I want to talk to the cops. I want my truck back. Get your truck back! I'll buy another one!
Since we're on the protagonist topic, let's really hammer home Wang's journey. He does the majority of the fighting in the film, gives most of the exposition about what it is they're dealing with, and is the only one who's actually defeated one of the 3 storms. Yeah, Jack ends up killing the main villain, but to be fair, since Lo Pan was already in human form, do we really think Wang wouldn't have been able to handle that? And once all is said and done, it's Wang who saved his loved one, his business, his home, and his community. Jack just got his truck back and a nice payday. Hell, like I said a moment ago, you can argue that Egg Shen is almost more of a protagonist than Jack is, because Egg is the Gandalf of the group, and he has a really cool magic duel with the Sauron of the tale towards the end of the film. And it's his general knowledge of magic and lore that even let everybody move forward to the end to begin with. I mean, Christ, Jack knocks himself out during the final fight, and he's out for most of it. He's a complete idiot. I also want to cover some of the more magical elements of the film as well, because it really hits the right tone of showing a lot and telling little. Now sure, we get the intro that Egg does, I mentioned a moment ago, but even before things get remotely explained to us, the very grounded story of a simple rescue from a street gang immediately ramps up the stakes by having the 3 storms show up out of nowhere and absolutely wreck everybody present. The 2 gangs unite to try to combat them, and it doesn't mean a single thing. Because as they get slaughtered, we can even get Lo Pan showing up, literally asking to be run over, followed by him shooting light from his face. Now, the film could have easily kept those 4 characters as the only real magical elements, and I still would have had a really great time. But we get some expanded lore and magical ability from Egg Shen, as I mentioned. We also get that gnarly looking hairy beast, we get the subterranean sewers that has its own monsters in it, and a definitely not copyrighted D&D beholder. Now, just so it is stated, I am completely aware of the fact that when this film first came out, there was some flack that it received for the way it played around with Asian-based mythology, but obviously I am in no way, shape, or form qualified to speak on that one way or the other, but there you are. If you do want to go look into it, you're more than welcome to do so. But for the moment, let's go ahead and wrap the main segment with some fun facts. First, and hilariously, the villains of this film actually show up in one of the animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle episodes. Secondly, if you don't look closely, you'll miss the fact that Egg's garage was actually the same set and layout they used for the Ghostbusters film. Also, for those who weren't aware, this film was a notable inspiration for the Mortal Kombat series. Shang Tsung was actually partly based off of Lo Pan, and Raiden was partly based off of Lightning of the 3 Storms. Lastly, for my favorite fact, John Carpenter actually formed a band called the Coupe de Villes, where they wrote one of the main songs for the film. And you really have to appreciate that kind of brand of director, like him and Walter Hill for the Warriors, who have such a passion that they're even hands-on with the music of the film itself. So if you've gotten to this point in the video and it still isn't clear, I'm telling you to go watch this movie. That should be pretty obvious if it's on my channel to begin with, but yes, go and watch this, make yourself a snack, maybe a cheese plate. I love cheese plates, Grab a comfy blanket and just, watch a fun, silly adventure movie. It's got some great music, fun characters, and what's not to love? Stop the presses! 6 Degrees of Muppets time, baby! If you don't know what that is, either pay attention closely or just go watch some previous videos, but let's go! This film had Kurt Russell, who was also in The Hateful Eight with Samuel L. Jackson, who was in Captain America Winter Soldier with Chris Evans, who was in Avengers Endgame with Paul Rudd, who was in Captain America Civil War with Jeremy Renner, who was in Arrival with Amy Adams, who worked alongside Jason Segel in the 2011 Muppets film. Wow, thank God for the MCU for having so many actors, am I right? And sure, you might think that's a little bit cheating, but hey, in the film trivia game,
they don't ask how, they ask how many.
Thank you again for watching. More to come soon, hopefully within the next week to week and a half. Obviously, if you do have any suggestions, please feel free to leave them below. And as always, I'm curious, what do you think?
Musical styles are still a very important form of communication for our young people. Hi, I'm Joe Feinstein.